Hi, everyone. Carmen Dudisco here with the Launch Network. We got a great show today planned for Get Retail Ready with my co-host, Mr. Jim DeBetta. Hey, Jim, man, we got a pretty good guest on. We're lucky, like you said, well, lucky to catch him, put him in a schedule. He's a big superstar now.
When you get famous people, first of all, just getting a hold of them, it's like getting a hold of this guy is like getting a hold of a buyer at Walmart. It's like an impossible task. But
yeah. His assistant has an assistant.
That's right. And you know what? We actually had him locked in a few weeks ago for a show, but I couldn't make the show. Like the once a year, I can't make a podcast.
Yeah, I think you were counting your money or something that day.
Yes, right. In piles and stacks. So I didn't want anyone to see that. And I didn't want to be interrupted. So I had to cancel. But we were so fortunate to have him back. And truly, really, with all that he has going on, and we're going to introduce him in a second, we really are. And really, actually, the inventors and people that listen to the show are actually very fortunate to have him on here because he really is a true industry guy, a success story, but more importantly, somebody that continues to be an advocate for the industry. We know there's a lot of people in this business that make it and then sort of just like wallow in their own success. And they sort of forget that it's not their job to give back or, people aren't required to do that. But this guy definitely continues to do it by what he shares online and how he just advocates for this business. And it's a great thing. So let's introduce him, Mr. Christopher Guerrera. Chris, good morning.
Morning, guys. Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. But Jim, I did find a secret out how to get a buyer from Walmart or Menards to call you back. Okay. So when they don't respond to your emails, I finally write an email, which was very professional, but really hard. The buyer actually called me back and said, dude, I've never met anybody more persistent than you. So I found a way to do it.
Well, you know what? I always preach be politely persistent. And, people laugh at that little term because I always say, look, if you ever give up, you'll never get them. But if you bother a buyer like every other day, they're going to tell you, stop calling me, you're stalking me, go away. So it's finding that sweet spot. But you're right, Chris. It's like you have to just be diligent in your follow-up. These buyers, they get thousands of emails a month. I mean, some of my closest buddies over the years have been retail buyers, right? Because this is what I do for a living. So it makes sense. And we go out like in the days when you could actually go to headquarters more and get trade shows. You'd go out to dinner with them or have a beer or something, and they'd laugh and they'd say, God, people just, they're so annoying. And these people say so much of crap. And they're laughing. But I'm like, so what do you like? What's the secret for you? And they're like, just don't bother me constantly. If you really have a good product, I'll eventually get to it. And if you're just not like crazed about your approach, I'll get to it. And I think, like you said, Chris, there's definitely something about having a relationship, but there is something about just knowing the tolerance levels of really, really busy multi-billion-dollar entities.
Yeah, in retail, as you said, the buyers are extremely busy. In my case, it was a turnover situation. I think I had 4 buyers in a year, and the last buyer kept telling me she was working on it, she was doing it. So I just kept sending follow-ups every couple of weeks. And then I sent her one last one. I said, listen, man, I don't know anybody in the world who takes 6 months to submit a final document to your boss. I said, so listen, I'm not gonna lose any sleep. If you don't want to do it, I understand. But just tell me one way or another.
Right. No maybe.
She sent me over the supplier contract. Then I found out the next day she quit.
Yeah, all the time, right? It's a constant turnover. I always get nervous when I get near the end to do a deal because buyers turn over and sometimes they just get fired, right? Because they're not hitting those numbers they need to hit. But also a lot of retailers are smart. They don't want collusion. They don't want buyers getting very cozy with vendors for obvious reasons. And so they rotate them. And I think it's good that sometimes they make a buyer who buys pet products go and buy housewares, and then they buy consumer electronics. And that's a common thing with a lot of retailers. And it kind of keeps those buyers fresh, and it avoids staleness and too deep of a situation with any particular vendor. But Chris, look, just think as experienced as you are, and for all the retail connections you have, and you have those problems, this is why it's so important for inventors to hear that it is just not easy. It's not, right? Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I think at one point, Brandy, my my future wife asked me, like, why are you on the phone every morning at 8 o'clock with Walmart? I said, because I'm trying to get this resolved. And you got to do call center and you got to get to the buyer. But it was interesting with Menards that, you know, even after this woman left, then they put a new buyer on it. And I'm like, listen, man, like, I am not going through this again. It's been a year. So, and he finally called me and said, you know, I hear you. And he said, you know, I just got this. I said, that's fine. I hear you. You just got it. Not me. I've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
That's not my problem that you guys are turning over. So I had reached my pinnacle of patience. And for me, a year is a lifetime. I'm not a patient guy to start with. I like to move. So I finally got it to a point actually where they finally put it in the store and it got submitted. But it was not an easy path. And I think everybody needs to know that. I mean, with Walmart and the Super Potty Trainer, I got a 2-week window where I didn't even have, you know, in this case on the Super Potty Trainer, I didn't even have graphics. I didn't have pads, nothing. But we made it happen because, you know, if you don't make it happen, you'll wait another year or maybe longer, if at all, you get in. So you just gotta play the cards right.
You know, a lot of inventors, guys, they don't realize that the buyers have current vendors. There's hundreds, if not thousands of vendors sometimes at these major chains. And so if you're a buyer, you have to first take care of your current vendors. So, all right, so if Chris is already doing Super Potty Trainer with Walmart, that buyer has to deal with that product first. They got to make sure it's selling. They've got to make sure that the shelves are full, things are, you know, everything's in order. And they have to take care of all that business before they get to the new stuff. And of course, a buyer's job is to buy. So they definitely need to bring in new things. That's why I go shopping. If I went shopping to a chain store and they just sold the same things and never changed, I'd probably go to a different store, right? Because you want to see what's new and trendy and fun. But at the end of the day, what's on those shelves gets attention first. And then the new products get looked at. And that's another reason why, on top of it just taking sometimes forever to just connect with the buyer because they're so busy, but they just have to get around to having that time. And they have product review periods. And it's not like they're just going to bring in something tomorrow. I mean, we could talk all day about this, but at the end of the day, Chris is absolutely right that it's just this constant persistence. You have to hang in there. You have to have some very thick skin. And if you give up in those first couple of months, you are definitely not getting anywhere.
Hey,
oh, yeah.
Hey guys, real quick, I want to jump in. The difference also is that I feel is that Chris, you, Jim, when you guys present a product to a buyer, you feel confident it's ready to go into the store. So you can push, you could say, hey, listen, man, I want this product in there. But, you know, if it's not done correctly, then that's why people are timid. That's why they're asking a buyer, can you please look at this? So I think it's something that our listeners have to realize is that when you're approaching the buyer, you have to be ready to get it into retail if they want it.
Yeah, you do. I mean, a lot of times though, the only exception, Carmen, and I do this as a sort of a thing for inventors because I think it saves them a ton of money and heartache, is I will take a sell sheet, a one-page sell sheet of the product before they go into like full-blown production, because Carmen, I don't have to tell you how much it costs to manufacture things, and just float it by some buyers I know very well, just to see if they, you know, they're not going to make a hard commitment at that moment, but they'll say, hey, Jim, look, this really does look good. I'd like to see it when it's done. But I have that privilege because I have those relationships. The average inventor, if they go to a buyer with something completely undone, the buyer's just not going to do anything. But in like Chris's case or my case, because we have those relationships, we can approach a buyer like that. But you're right, Carmen. Generally speaking, you need to be ready to do business, because if they actually, let's say they really do like the thing, and you don't have it, that's like a nightmare, because now you've got this opportunity and you don't actually have anything for them. And they may have an opportunity to put that product on their website or in their stores. And, you know, you just don't want to blow that.
Yeah.
You know, and then last year was a whole different game, right? It hit a pandemic. So now you went from buyers looking at products for spring, they got moved to the fourth quarter. They became now and actually I was in Bentoncourt in February. So I was probably the last meeting at Walmart before that whole pandemic hit. Then it became, everything was Zoom. You had to schedule meetings. So now your presentation is not in person. So you really got to have good sell sheets, good videos, good packaging. So when they see it, you know, on a presentation online, as opposed to being in person, it's a whole different type of presentation. So that added some elements, and you had buyer turnover. So last year was about as unique as it can get. I mean, even for me with Shark Tank, right? That was filmed in a pandemic. That had all the pandemic protocols. That was the first time in history, probably, and let's just go on record now and say, the last time ever in history we have to go through something like that.
Oh, we're gonna get to your Shark Tank stuff in a minute. Don't you worry, because obviously he's not dropping hints with his huge background back there. So we're gonna get to that in a minute. But I have because it's so hard to get a guy like Chris on with his experience. I definitely have other quick questions I want to get to, Chris. So if you don't mind, because this stuff is gold for inventors to hear somebody with your success and how you do it. And so let me just ask you, and I know this could be a long answer, but if you can try to just keep it like succinct and short for inventors to digest. What's your day in the life like? So I know that when I get up, I have my procedures and my habits and things that I do. Like when I try to work with retailers, I get up, I do my emails in the morning, I wait for reactions, I do this, I do research online to see what products are selling. What's your day like, Chris? Not only a very successful industry guy, but as a successful inventor yourself or product guy, what's your day like? How do you go about doing what you do so inventors can kind of get a sense of how it should go or could go?
Yeah, even that, Jim, I reinvented myself a couple of times there, because I find that when you start getting noticed, everybody wants to talk to you, right? And so then you become a guy on the phone all day long, and then your nights become doing all the work, or your early mornings become doing all the work. Someone had asked me just recently, like, do you ever sleep? Because I sent them an email at 4 o'clock. I mean, it is what it is. I wake up and my mind's going, so I want to get it documented, what I'm talking about. So I try to now keep my schedule in sync. Brandy works crazy hours. She works Sunday through Thursday, and she has some time off. So I try to keep my schedule somewhat in line with her. But I typically say I work most Sundays. I even work a lot of Saturday mornings. I try to take calls at certain times of the week. I do a lot of podcasts now at certain days of the week. And then I leave the really critical stuff like submissions to Amazon, submissions to Walmart, Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, Target for certain days. And to answer those questions, like I spent most of the day yesterday submitting new documents to Menards. The week before that, I spent most of the week submitting all my products to Walmart because all the line reviews are coming up. And then I've got, then Walmart sends you something with pre-audits for plants, which that's another 2 or 3 days of work to make sure the plan is ready, the documents are all filled out correctly, because they may do an audit. They do an audit, that's a pretty big deal. Right now, all my stuff is made in the USA. So I think it makes it, for me, a lot easier than having to deal with all the time schedules of being in a different country. So from that standpoint, I'm able to manage it. And I take a lot of that pride in from coming out of corporate America, right? I've spent a lot of time in corporate America. I've got a strong lean background, but I have a heavy management background with really large companies that when you're sitting in a room with 15 people and the salaries are $1.5 million, you want to make sure that meeting is as efficient as it can be. So when I talk efficiency to people, somebody thinks they really understand efficiencies until they're done talking to me. Then I show them where they're not efficient. And sometimes they take it personal.
Hey, that's okay, because you know what? It's working. And if it works, hey, sidebar. If I remember right, big sidebar here. You proposed to Brandy on Good Morning America, didn't you? If I'm not mistaken.
I did. That was in 2019 in December.
That's right. I remember seeing like a video. I was like, what the? He's on Good Morning.
Yeah, that was
it's about as
quite a trip
as you can get. That's crazy. I remember that.
Yeah, and then Robin Roberts did a follow-up 6 months later, live on Good Morning America, and they want to do another follow-up after we get married. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. It was pretty cool. I mean, that's the first time I actually felt extremely nervous being on live TV.
Right. I mean, well, now because it's personal, right? It's no longer business. It's a whole nother thing, a different level. I just remember like I was on, I don't know what I was on, and I see this clip, like, and I'm like, wait, that's Chris. And then like he's proposing. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, okay, so usually a lot of people propose and it's like just the guy and the girl, or maybe there's like an onlooker or two. You had like a million to like how many millions of people watching this thing. So like, that was crazy, but I
And
just
for me,
like remembered that.
it was the best kept secret. You know, I
Yeah.
had joked with my son, my 21-year-old at the time, and said, "Hey, what if I did this live on Good Morning America?" And his comment was, I mean, he kind of laughed in my face. He said, "They're not going to let you do it live on Good Morning America." I said, "I don't know. I got some pretty good connections." So I sent a text. I'm not kidding. Like, it's all about timing too. I caught Jillian at the right time. Within 10 seconds, I had a response. And Tyler's like, "Oh my God, you really did get a response." Then a minute later, I had VIP passes. So I was like, and I didn't tell anybody, no one. Tyler's the only one that knew. So even that morning, Brandy even said to me, when they brought us in really early, put us in front, and I kept trying to tell her they were going to ask us to do something, and she's like, "I don't want to be on TV." And so, well, this is one of those cases you don't have any control. Like, Jillian has hooked us up. You have to make sure that even if it's saying Good Morning America. So then, before we go live, she's like, "You look like, why do you look so uncomfortable today?"
Yeah.
I said, I don't have my lines down yet. She thought I was gonna do a pitch of a product or something, but I pulled it off. It went great. And how I know it went great, because my 21-year-old said to me, "Dad, you nailed it." And that's his chance to really rip me. He didn't.
Oh,
He didn't
absolutely.
give
Right?
a chance.
Yeah, well done, my man. Well
That's
done.
Funny. That's
Hey,
great.
all right. Well, all right, Chris, look, for the time we have left, we want, obviously per your background, you're going to be on Shark Tank. And we know that there are millions of people either try to get on, pitch. I think you guys know that I used to work with Kevin Harrington during the first couple of seasons when he was one of the sharks on Shark Tank. So I definitely had a, inside track to how it works, the deals. I put a lot of those products that were on the show into retail. So I definitely know how significant Shark Tank is and what it's become. I actually didn't think it would make it this long, but it's still such a popular show. It hasn't gotten worn out, and there's just so much interest in the world of inventing that it just keeps going. But I would love for you to tell everybody the experience. Like, what was it like? Like, what did you do to get chosen? A lot of people say, "Jim, what do I do? I mean, how do I pitch? What do I say? Blah, blah, blah." So just, if you could just share some nuggets with us about like the process, what it took for you to do, what it was like, just the whole experience. I think it would be really helpful for those that want to pitch to understand maybe what they could possibly do to help themselves.
Yeah, I think it starts early on. Like, a lot of people have told me that they waited in line for 2 days and 2 weeks, and I didn't do all of that. I had an opportunity to send in an email. I had a couple products, and I got a random call one day, and Brandy was in the car. It was kind of ironic. It was a Saturday. We were out doing some shopping for the landscaping that we were doing in the yard, and it was a Shark Tank casting call, basically. And we had walked through the process, and I at that point had to decide on what product to choose. I chose a super potty trainer. So I think it's good to have a product that's easy to pitch, right? I mean, the simpler the better. It's like that for anything. It's like that for retail, for packaging. The more complicated you make it, the more difficult it becomes to sell. So that was an easy part. Then it just goes into stages, like heavy duty stages of next level. Every time you think there's multiple stages of getting accepted. It's not just that one call and you're on. So then you got to go through this whole process of when you finally make it to the stage where it's getting serious, you got to go through a whole background check. I mean, heavy duty background check. And I think in my case, it was a lot of Zooming, a lot of videos with my partner, Judy. Again, great product, different than what's in the market today, very unique. And, everyone will get a chance to see that on May 21st at 8:00. Which is not this Friday, next Friday. And I think they start with choosing you, the individual, as an entrepreneur, more than the product. They want to see how you are. It's entertainment first. They want a good storyline, a good tagline. And then you go through all these iterations. So Judy was in another state. So we had to do a lot of Zooming, which makes it even more complicated. Then you're doing this in a pandemic, which makes it even more difficult. I can't talk too much about, leading up to that day. But I can tell you that it was, they talked about this on Shark Tank. It was in Vegas. It was a pandemic. We were enclosed in a room, our room for 10 days, pitched on the 11th day. If you've ever tried that, going to a motel and staying in a room for 10 days
In
let me
Las
know how
Vegas.
that works out.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. Temptations abound outside.
Yeah, so I would say make sure you have your act together. Like we had no debt. We had inventory. We had gotten into Walmart. We talk about that a little bit now, the whole Walmart thing, because it happened right before the pandemic. It was like one of those things. We had 2 weeks to get it in, but really, reality, that sales launched us. I mean, we got hit with a pandemic and it slowed it down, but that launched us to getting some really good looks from other department stores, and ultimately being able to pitch them into an arena like Shark Tank.
Yeah, I mean, people, like you said, I think you hit it there when you said it's not just, oh, you submit and they call you and it's you're on. I remember when Kevin was on like that first season, and it's funny because I remember him saying, yeah, Jim, I'm going to be on this show, Shark Tank. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be any good and look at it today. But I remember him like getting and seeing the opportunities, people like yourself that would come on. And of course, like you said, it's entertainment first. They want interesting personalities. They have to have people that go on the show that get rejected, right? Because it's drama. They can't just, if everyone went on the show, pitched, they got a deal, it would be like, watching a particular like TV show you watch and it ends the same way every time. You got to have a cliffhanger. You got to have something that surprises you. But you're right. I think obviously the product has to have some merit, and it's got to be something that the sharks can invest in. But really, if you're boring, you don't have a good personality, you're not, feisty with the sharks or whatever that is that they're looking for from you, then it's not going to be a good fit. It doesn't matter how great the product is at that point. It's all about entertainment and being on TV. And a lot of inventors get upset by that because they go on. I've had people send things to me like, hey, Jim, there's an open call and whatever. Can you take a look at my, my original like pitch video? And they're like, hi, I'm Chris. Blah, blah. And I'm like, just be yourself. I know it's probably nerve-wracking to record yourself, but just be yourself. Have a personality. Say, hey, Sharks, check this out. I got this product. This is awesome. It does this, this, and this. Whatever. But they just get on and they're like monotone and dead. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I want to smile or feel good when I get done watching their 30 or 60-second video. If I'm a casting director, that's what I would want to see, right? I mean, at least initially. Then I'm looking at the product going, oh, okay, that product actually could probably do well, or whatever it is. But you're right. I think it's not as easy as people think. There's a process. It's multi-staged. They have to get down from like a gazillion people to a billion to a million to hundreds of thousands. They really, how many, Chris, I think you and I were talking about this. How many people do they submit, do you know, like, for each season or casting call when they do it?
Yeah, so typically it's 80 that make it, and there could be some opportunity for some more purchases from ABC, but in our case, we broke the mold. It made history. Not only was it in a pandemic, there was over 120,000 applicants in season 12. So it was the highest in the history of the show. And in our group, they picked 50, and we were one of the 50. So like you think about the stats, the chances of getting on. I mean, I've been playing lottery tickets every week now. That's kind of the odds, right?
Shot at
getting on Shark Tank with over 120,000 applicants, right? So I think season 12 was even harder because you did need sales. I think if you go in it without sales and you try to pitch it, it becomes very difficult because it's not a proven concept at that point, right? It's not truly something that you're able to truly sell into a market. Very different season.
Yeah, it's funny. My little daughter, who's in middle school, she acts, and she gets all these opportunities to pitch or to self-tape to submit for a TV show or a movie. And I swear she's done over 100 of those things, and she's not gotten a big role yet. She never gets discouraged, which is good because she just loves the acting and the fun of it. But you think about how many people, if it's like a major motion picture or big TV series, that the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that will be asked to pitch, but they can only pick a few characters, right? There aren't 1,000 characters or roles for a TV show. There's only a few, like Shark Tank, there's only a few that are going to get into the tank. And so I kind of live that also personally by watching her. And I always just say, Chloe, look, the chances are tiny, but eventually they may just choose you. And it's not for any other reason except that casting director may just something about you they like, your personality, the way you come across, the way people will perceive you. That's so huge. So it's not a knock on the inventor. Always some inventors come and say, you know, my product, I'm so mad because my product is so awesome. It's so great. And I'm like, your product is really good. But there was something about the whole thing, that they just didn't feel like it was right for TV. And I said, who cares? That doesn't stop you from doing well or being successful. I mean, obviously getting on Shark Tank certainly doesn't hurt, but a lot of these inventors feel like if they don't get on Shark Tank, they have no hope, and they should realize that they do have plenty of hope just on their own merits with the product itself.
You know, it's funny, Jim. I feel like I definitely have the process, though. I can tell you that because I was on Good Morning America Shark Tank as well, which is not another easy one. It was over. This one had about 1,000 applicants, and they picked 12.
Wow.
Right. So I was able to do that. Then I got on the regular Shark Tank. But I think about it. It's definitely not an easy process. And look at Judy Edwards said from Squatty Potty when I interviewed her on the UIA. She had gotten really late in the process, but one of the senior producers, casting crew, didn't like the whole potty, going to the bathroom and talking about, as she calls it, pooping. Right? They didn't like it, so she didn't get in. And then the following year, a different casting person said, try it again, you know, because we have that person's no longer with us. We have a different crew now. They may accept it. And they did. And in her case, the rest is history, literally, because her sales have blown up.
I think
it's a little bit of persistence.
It's like calling on retail buyers. When they change out and rotate, you may be getting a flat out no from a buyer who maybe just doesn't connect with you that way, or they just don't see the product. A new buyer comes in, they're like, wow, this is awesome. I love this. You're great. Let's do something. So you're right. I think the whole takeaway key word, if there is one from this podcast today, is persistence. You have to be in this business to stay in it. If you give up, you stop. Some of the biggest deals I have ever gotten at retail were because I just kept pushing. And then sometimes I stop. And then 2-3 months later, I get an email from the buyer out of the blue saying, hey, Jim, I am so sorry. I've looked at your stuff 100 times. I just couldn't get back to you. Or can you still deal with this product? Can we move forward? And I'm like, hell yes. And it's because I made the reach out 50 times prior. And I've had buyers many times come back and say, I really appreciate your persistence. I really appreciate that you stayed with it and you stuck in there and I just knew I just had to get back to you. But had I given up, Chris, early on, I would have been forgotten and lost in all the other stuff. So absolutely a huge thing.
I agree with you. And, you know, in my case, my Judy Abrahams, who started this 8 years ago, she had some stumbles and some areas where she fell down. And I think she talks about finding the right partner a lot now, right? Us being the right partner together made all the difference in the world for her. I believed in the product. I put my whole character in front of it, right? Like people say, you're selling potty training devices? Me, right? I'm a BMW guy, a Ford guy. I said, look, it's not that, it's the story behind it, right? Here's a woman who struggled to get it to market, and I believed in the product. I believed in her, and it's about the story. And the story is absolutely amazing. And I've watched so many Shark Tank episodes, and I have a different appreciation now of actually being on that stage. I see some people holding up stuff where their hands are shaking, or people talk about they're so nervous, their teeth are chattering. In my case, I didn't feel that. I mean, there's a lot of iterations you go through with your pitch and stage. I lost my mother earlier that year, and I felt like, I felt like she was with me, a different calming presence. But I'll tell you a funny thing that happened right before. There's 2 sets of doors that open up, and you go through your pitches over and over and over. I mean, it's almost like torture, right? You just want to go pitch. So I'm 10 days going to bed at night saying your pitch, waking up saying it, waking in the middle of the night saying it. It's like, okay, I just want to get this over with. So now the time has come. We're in front of the door, cameras are on. You got one of the producers telling us, I'm going to count you down and those doors are going to open. You better walk through them. And Judy's like, oh my God, I'm going to pray now, Chris, in Spanish. And I jokingly, to break the ice a little bit, I looked over and said, hey, what's my name again?
Nice.
What's it like though?
And then it starts.
What's it like though, walking through those doors? I mean,
honestly, it's surreal. You've been watching it for years, right? Watched hundreds of episodes, and then you're walking through what you've been watching, and you're looking at these sharks that you've been watching on television. It's pretty surreal.
And you know, it's funny too, the studio space is so much smaller. People don't realize that the camera makes space look so much larger, and you get out there and it's really not a vast, 100-foot long room. It's like there's, some chairs, couches, types of, and then your backdrop, the setup where people have the products. And it's like when you go on, I've been on HSN a bunch of times and you're like, this is it, but it's intimidating because you have there's all these cameras and and these things are huge, they're the size of, small cars, and they're panning in and they're moving. And it definitely is intimidating, to people, especially if you're not used to doing it. I mean, Chris, you're on TV all the time, so, whatever. But, it's like for everyone else, it's a lot. It's a lot to do. I mean, I did that a few episodes when I was an investor on Make Me a Millionaire Inventor on CNBC back in 2016 and 17. And I remember when I flew to LA and I was on, and, that they're doing the hero shots and you're doing your thing. And I'm in this room. It was like the size of a small bedroom, but when I watched it back, I'm like, wow, this looks like some huge ballroom area. But I remember the heat from the lights and the cameras, and you're just sweating just existing on there. Never mind, being a little anxious. But like you, I was never really nervous. You're anxious, but your stuff. And once you get going, it just you become yourself, and then you sort of forget a little bit what's on you.
Yeah, and I can see how, I know some people have kind of frozen up and lost their way along the pitch. I can see how that could easily happen.
Oh,
Especially
absolutely.
If you stumble and now you've got people staring at you, right? You got cameras, your mind starts wandering. So I can see how people could do that. And it's funny what you said, Jim, because even Good Morning America, first time I was on there, there's what the camera shows you and what's reality are two different things.
Oh yeah.
All around me, there's wires, controllers,
tracks,
commercial, George Stephanopoulos literally talking, and I'm right on. You can't see me.
Yeah.
But I'm right on the side of the camera, literally. All you do is put my hand there, and I'm in front of the camera. But it's the camera shows you what they want you to see as an audience.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It's a whole different game.
yeah.
Yep. Hey, Chris, my producer is in my ear telling us that our time is about up. Oh, wait, that's Carmine, isn't it?
No. Hey, one question though, Chris, is there any small talk with the Sharks when you go in there, or you just start right away?
There's what's called Shark Tank stare down. So basically, before you actually pitch, there's 30 seconds of nothing, just looking at the shark smiling. So there's no small talk. There's a lot of camera shoots, photos. So before you actually get to throw your pitch out.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. Hey, Chris, amazing. This is huge for people to hear. I know I always love getting on the inside and hearing things that, you just can't access publicly, but to hear you talk about it, your experiences, your successes, the advice you give to inventors, it's invaluable. Obviously, we will be cheering you on and promoting your Shark Tank night coming up. We know that it's coming up shortly. And we really appreciate you. We know how busy it's been, especially right now for you to get back on here and share what you know. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jim, thank you. It's my pleasure. I hope anything I could do here to help out some inventors or get them on the right track, and this helps, I'm happy to do it.
Where can people find you, man? What's the quickest?
This way is chrisguerrera.com. Christopher Guerrera, chrisguerrera.com.
We know you're on social media. They can get you there too. I know I can't hide anymore, so they find you, but
All
cool.
good. All good.
Yeah,
Right.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, Chris is definitely on social media. Jim on social media. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening in today. We had a great show. I want to thank Chris for all he's doing for inventors. He's a board member for the UIA. He
Right.
helps out inventors all the time. He's a great guy. And definitely take a watch. May 21st, watch Shark Tank. Definitely give some support. We appreciate him coming on today. All you listeners out there, please go on to Google Play, iTunes, download this podcast. Leave us a review rating. We could really use it. We thank you very much for listening. We congratulate Christopher Guerrera again for making it to Shark Tank and all the things that he has had success in today. And we will catch you next time on Get Retail Ready. You all take care.